Very good afternoon to all. This is Shelton from BSc Hotel Management and Catering Science, AJK College of Arts and Science, NAAC A Grade. Today we will be discussing about room service. Now, what is room service? Room service is a service of the service department belonging to rooms where they get the tea, coffee, beverages, cold, hot beverages, food, everything served in the room. So what we will be looking at is today, what are the types of room service? Now, room service has two types. One is centralized and decentralized. In centralized room service, why do we have a centralized room service? Now, during centralized room service means that the guest will order the food to the room service and room service will deliver that to the kitchen and the kitchen will deliver the food back to room service. In turn, room service gives it back to the guest. So that is a centralized room service. Now, why do we have a decentralized room service? We have a decentralized room service where food is partly prepared and kept in the centralized kitchen, and then when the order comes, for example, if a sandwich or ice creams or any cold beverages or hot beverages come, in some hotels, most of the leading hotels, they have a decentralized room service where the order goes to room service, and from room service it comes to decentralized, saying that the particular room number of the particular floor getting that particular order. So this makes it a little easier for them and easier for customers also to access this, and it speeds up the service. So decentralized is nothing but where the guests order the food and it is served from the pantry of the kitchen after floor. Okay. So next we will be seeing is what are the different types of room service. So different types, as I mentioned, centralized and decentralized. In decentralized, we also have something called as waiters. So what is who is a waiter? A waiter is somebody who helps in the service of the food and also helps in guest errands. Okay. Now there is something called as a dummy waiter. A dummy waiter is somebody who keeps storage for the operation of the restaurant or the room service floor pantry. So a dummy waiter is nobody but basically we will be looking at a dummy waiter as a clearance and a service place to keep the cutlery, crockery that is needed for the service of the operations. Okay, so that is decentralized and dummy waiter. And what is a mobile room service? Now, in resorts, like you take any resorts, they have something called as mobile room service, which means the food is 90% cooked in the kitchen, that is mobilized to the particular room which is in front. The van or the mobile, the way of transport would be coming right in front of the room and it will be served to the customer. For example, if there's any kind of function that the customer wants to have with his family and his friends, so the food would be cooked partially from the kitchen and the remaining cooking is done in front of the guest. So that is called as a mobile room service. Now, why do we have a mobile room service? In resorts, it's generally not easy to keep all the equipments in the room for the customer. So the customer has certain kind of needs that he wants. So then they have a mobile room service where the food is served to the customer. Okay. Now next we will be seeing is why do we need a room service? Now for room service, we need a room service because any guest may be coming there for a vacation or maybe coming for some kind of business or some kind of a treatment. So in those cases, we need to help the customers who come to the rooms to get what the food, the tea, coffee, beverages, all that. So that is why we have a room service, and as I mentioned earlier, centralized, decentralized, mobile room service and dummy waiter. Okay. Now next we will be seeing a full room service. What is a full room service? Now for a full room service, meaning that would be a 24-hour room service. So which means in all the hotels, like 5-star, 3-star, 2-star hotels, they have a service for 24 hours where the customer can get food, tea, coffee, beverages, except alcohol, where they serve it between a stipulated time. Okay, so that would be like 24 hours room service or full room service. So the meaning of full room service is it runs 24 hours without any break, and they have a fixed menu for particularly for room service. So for room service they have a different menu, and for the cafeteria, coffee shop, the restaurant and the specialty restaurant, there is a different kind of menus that are being prepared. Okay, now what we do for partial room service. Partial room service is nothing but where they have a service timing of 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Depending on each hotel, they have a partial room service. Now, partial room service, if they have a timing like for example 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., between that particular 12 hours, they will be serving the food, drinks, tea, coffee, or beverages, hot beverages and cold beverages. Okay. Now, what happens in case a customer wants to have a food after that? So there will be a stipulated time where they will not be having a service. So what they do is they will have a special menu. Only that menu will be available in partial room service. So for partial room service, generally what they do is they would be having a fixed menu and a particular time for the customers to order the food so that they can go ahead and proceed with that. Okay. Now for partial room service, they also have a specialty like they will have a fixed time. For example, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. for breakfast. Then they will have a small brunch, which is called between breakfast and lunch. So they will have a fixed menu for that. Again, it starts for lunch 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock, and then again they'll have a break. So the menu differs according to the hotels, and it is also important for the customer to be aware of what is happening. So they will be doing the particular partial room service. Now, why do we need why is there a partial room service? Now, partial room service, there may be different reasons because of the availability of the particular food or the particular locality of the hotels. So not all hotels have partial. All hotels, 90% of the hotels would have a full room service. 10% would have a partial room service. For example, the hotels that are by the bus stop or by the stations where they don't have much people coming and going, or just for a few hours they will come and go. So that is why they have a partial room service there. And the details there for that would be a fixed menu, as I said earlier, that would be able to help the customers. Now, what are the timings that generally room service works at? So the timings for room service is 24 hours, but during those 24 hours, they have a breakup as to what time, what food will be served and what will be given to the customer. So the first timing that we will be looking at is 6 in the morning to 10:30, 11. So that is called the breakfast time. So in that breakfast time, they would be having a breakfast, like for South Indian, it will be all the South Indian menus like idli, dosa, pongal, puri. For continental, be a continental breakfast, juice, bread rolls, muffins, bread items, butter, jam, tea, coffee. So based on each menu, there would be a particular food that will be getting ready. So for breakfast, it's 6 to 10:30. From 10:30 or 11, depending on the hotel as the timings being set, 11 to 1 would be called as a brunch time. So for that, during that brunch time, they would be having sandwiches or many small snacks based on the hotel and the timing. So that is called as a brunch. So that again comes under the 24-hour schedule. After brunch, it would be the lunch that will be served at between 1 or 11. Sometimes it will be between 11:30 till 3 o'clock. So again, it's a fixed menu that is served for the particular room service. As I said earlier, that depending on each hotel, there would be a fixed menu and the availability of the food. So after brunch, so we finished with breakfast, brunch, lunch is over, next comes the high tea. High tea starts at 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock. High tea as another name is called as afternoon tea or evening tea. So that is also called as snacks time from 3 to 6. So from 6 or 6:30 depending on the hotel, from 6:30 till 11 would be the dinner time, 10:30, 11. The last orders are generally taken at 10:30 to give the customer time for the next order and for the particular kitchen also to function accordingly. So that will be dinner, and after that comes the midnight menu, which starts at 11:30 or 11 depending on the hotel, 11 to morning 4 or 5. So that would be the fixed timings that we will be looking at for room service. Now, what would be using in room service? Room service has a few equipments that is required. For example, a tray to carry the food. Then you have the coffee pots, tea pots, cutlery, crockery, glassware that is all needed. Bread baskets, hot cases, all that would be needed for the operation of the room service. Now, for room service, why is it important? Now, in room service, it is important because room service also gives us revenue, and the rates compared to the others would be a little higher as it is because of personalized service that it is there. So we do have a good general revenue generating system from room service. Now in room service there is a hierarchy that needs to be followed. What is the hierarchy? What is a hierarchy? And hierarchy is a role where who follows the order or who comes below who. So the first would be the room service manager, who would be reporting to the food and beverage manager. The next would be the assistant room service manager or a senior captain, or called as maitre. So after that would be the service waiter, and after the service waiter comes the trainees. Now between the manager and the assistant manager or the senior captain, there is somebody called as RSOT, which means room service order taker. So who is a room service order taker? Now room service order taker has a unique part in playing in room service. The reason being is in room service they have the order taker who holds the key to the department, because if one wrong entry is done, then the entire department has a complaint or a problem. So the room service order taker is considered as a key to room service because he or she is the one who is communicating to the customer regarding the food order or whatever order the customer wants. Okay? So an RSOT, as I said, he takes orders and makes sure that the instructions, for example, if the customer is a patient who does not need salt, so he or she will tell the room service order taker, I need food without salt. So she has to mention in that, he or she has to mention in the order that is passing to the waiter that there is no need for salt to be given to the customer. So based on that, the instructions have to be followed. So that is why I said room service order taker holds the key to the department to run smoothly and successfully without any kind of problem. Now what are the problems that generally room service faces? Room service faces general problems like miscommunication, where they something minor would have been left out, like I said, salt would have gone in, so that becomes an issue. So in that case, it is a fault where we have to own up to that responsibility and make sure we change it and replace the food to the customer's satisfaction. Okay. Now next we will be looking at beverages. What is a beverage? Beverage is generally termed as two types. One, alcoholic. Two, non-alcoholic. Under alcoholic, we have whiskey, brandy, rum, gin, vodka, tequila, beer. Right? So that is called as an alcoholic beverage. Not forgetting the cocktails that come under the particular drinks. Now, we come under non-alcoholic, which again is divided into two. One is cold and one is hot. So when it comes to cold, it's the cold shakes, the milkshakes that come into place. Milkshakes, cold coffee, iced tea. So they come under particular non-alcoholic beverages. So that is cold. What are the hot beverages? Hot beverages again, tea, coffee, health drinks. Health drinks can be any kind of supplement that you use as a health drink. Boost, Bonita, Horlicks, Complan, nutritional diets, Milo, all those particular non-alcoholic or health drinks are called as the beverages under hot beverages. So why do we need a beverage, or what is the use of a hot beverage for the body? We need a hot beverage which helps us to, it stimulates the body and gives us a fresh kind of feeling. Whenever we are tired, we can have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee or whichever you prefer. You like to have a health drink. Yes, the beverage gives us energy and makes us more relaxed for some time to get back the energy for us to work again. So that is why we need a beverage. So as I said earlier, beverage has two types. One is alcoholic, one is non-alcoholic. So alcoholic will be seen in the later part. Non-alcoholic will be seen as of now. So how do we, it's classified as hot and cold again. So the cold comes under where we use either ice cream, ice cubes, or the cold milk to be prepared for cold coffee, milkshakes, etc. For hot beverages, it's tea, coffee, health drinks. Sometimes they call soup also as a hot beverage, because again soup gives you an extra nutritional value, and it also increases the appetite and also stimulates the body. So what are the equipments that we need for to serve the beverages? For example, if you're serving a coffee or a tea in room service, I'm talking only about room service now, right now. So in room service for coffee and tea, you will need a small tray, or known as a tea tray. For that, a tea tray, a coffee pot, your sugar cube, your sugar bowl, your creamer, your cup, and your saucer with a teaspoon. Now, why do we need a creamer? We need a creamer to serve the milk. So I said, most of the customers would be asking for a coffee. Depending on the customer, you may ask for a coffee which is separate. Separate means the decoction will be separate, milk will be separate, and hot water will be separate. Why do we send hot water? Because the decoction would be strong and it may not be liked by the customer. The customer might want something like a light coffee, just a small flavor of coffee and more of milk. So to prevent that, we send the customer hot water also. So when the customer asks us to serve the coffee, when you go into room service, first you need to knock on the door, announce your arrival. For example, good morning sir, this is room service, say your name. Once the customer opens the door, greet the customer depending on the order of the day. For example, morning, afternoon, evening, or night. Place the tray on the table or on the side of the where the guest sits. And if the guest says, leave it there, then we can leave the food and get the bill signed and we can come out. Now the customer says, serve me the coffee, then this is the procedure that needs to be followed for serving the coffee or a tea. Take the cup, put the sugar cubes first, then pour the decoction. Make sure that your equipments are very clean, chip free, there's no chips on the cups, on the saucer. Pour the water, ask the customer how strong he wants the coffee. So pour the coffee, the milk, and then mix it and give it to the customer. So always the sugar cube should go first, then the decoction, then the hot water, and last the milk. If you do it the reverse, then the sugar will not melt and that will become an issue for the customer. Okay? So that, and for that particular thing we need a particular equipment. As I said earlier, it's a small tea tray, coffee pot, your sugar bowl, your cream, a teaspoon, and the cup and saucer required for the service. Okay, so next what we'll be doing is we would be looking at a particular department called as buffet service. Now, what is a buffet? Buffet is a place where you have a variety of dishes served in one particular time. For example, you start with a soup, you start with a starter, the soup, then the salads, then the bread, rice, main items, etc. So, for buffet, there are different types. So, buffets are generally used for meetings and functions. So, they again, it is formal and informal. Formal functions are called as meetings, any kind of a corporate meeting. You have a corporate meeting, then you have board of directors, hotel meetings, family get-togethers being formal, where you have a big family discussion. Again, they come under formal. Now, informal is generally, as all of you are aware, any weddings, receptions, birthdays, sari ceremonies. All these are called as informal functions. So, where they have a particular kind of menu, which is the buffet, for the customer to go and help himself. Buffet is generally 99% it is a self-service oriented for buffet. So the customer has to help, he or she has to help themselves with the food and they can proceed to eat. Now, for buffet, there is few restrictions. One, it is a little complicated when it comes to the menu, and you need to see the different factors that before you set up the buffet. What is the factors that you will be setting up during the buffet? The factors that you will be seeing is the space availability, how many people are going to come, what is the menu that you have decided, and what kind of a function is it, what type of people will be coming, who are the people who are going to come, and also what any kind of special instructions, like for example, they may have a special kind of color or special kind of food that needs to be cooked for them. For example, it can be a Gujarati wedding, it can be an Indian wedding, it can be a Punjabi wedding, a South Indian wedding, or any kind of wedding where it is all theme based. Based on that particular theme, the buffet will also differ and the settings will also differ. So when it comes to buffet, you need to look at various aspects as to what is the first thing we'll be looking at. When is the function? That is either a breakfast, lunch or dinner. First that, then what type of meal will be giving, what type of settings is needed, and what kind of food that is going to come. Okay, so that would be a different atmosphere altogether compared to the restaurant and to the room service. Now buffet, there are different types. One is a formal and informal, as I told earlier. Now under formal you have the corporate meetings, board of directors, and any family function who want to sit and talk about something very important. So they will have a formal meeting. Now informal, as I said, weddings, receptions, functions, birthday parties, sari ceremonies, all that comes under informal functions. Now under informal functions, you have either a sit-down buffet or a standing buffet. What is a sit-down buffet? A sit-down buffet is nothing but where the customer takes the food first. Initially, he takes the food, sits down on a place, and then the food is served by somebody else from the second serving from the chef and dish. So for a buffet, you need a chef and dish, a fuel container, a cutlery and crockery for the buffet setup. Okay. So under that, when the customer takes the first part, that is the sit-down buffet, he or she would take the food, go and sit down there, and then would call the waiter and tell them that I need this. So they will take a dish. From the dish, they will serve it to the customer. Now what is a standing buffet? Standing buffet is nothing but where the customer stands and just has his food. There is no any other arrangements except for the cutlery that is needed for the customer to particularly do his to use that, either a spoon or a fork or knife, depending on the hotels. The cutlery sets would be kept there, and they would be going ahead and using that particular cutlery set. Now informal or standing is that sitting. For a sit-down buffet, you would have all the cutlery and crockeries placed on the table for the customer to come there and sit and eat. This happens in very, very rare cases where it's a VVIP or any particular function of the company who has ordered for a sit-down buffet. Okay? Okay, so continuing with the particular buffets, as I said earlier, there are two types. One is sitting and one is standing. So there's another type called as finger buffet. What is finger buffet? Finger buffet is nothing but where the customers use minimum cutlery and crockery. Crockery, of course, yes, they need to be served there. They will be using the fingers to have the particular food. So what would they be served? They would be served like snacks, something very small, mini bites, some samosa, sandwiches, cocktail samosas, canapes, tarts, small parts of apple pies. All those will be served for the customer, and that's called as a finger buffet. So this is a part of the service that we will be looking at for the room service and buffet. So for buffet and for banquets, which is called as the banquet is actually called as the backbone of the entire hotel, because this is the highest revenue generating department, where most of the revenue that is being generated for the hotel is done by the banquets department, and that is why it is called as a backbone of the service department. So service is divided into different parts. So just to give you a brief idea about that is, first is room service for coffee shop, restaurant, room service, bar and banquets. So that would be the services that we will be operating for the particular hotel. So basically we will be looking at 5 different outlets that the particular hotel has to help the customers in various different outlets that they would be using. Coffee shop could be running 24 hours, which means you will get any kind of snacks based on the menu that is available for the customer, and the customer can use that. So as I said earlier, we will be looking at also buffet setups. So for buffet setup, what is the things that we need to look at? We will be looking at, first would be the venue of the particular function. How many people will be coming? What is the expected and what is the guaranteed? Expected meaning, for example, they would say, I would guarantee 100 people would come, and expected would be somewhere around 100 to 120. So the chef has to prepare for the food according to that particular quantity. So based on that information, all that said and done, we would be looking at what are the factors that needs to be looked at for the buffet setup. So what are the factors? The factors would be like space, availability of the particular hall, and the availability for the customer to move in and out of the hotel or the particular banquet function, and for the customer to also sit and have his food where there is no kind of where the customers don't rub against each other. So we'll be looking at space factor for the particular function, the number of people that are coming, and the food that is to be served, and what are the special requirements for the customer while they are taking a buffet function. Now, special requirements meaning, what will be the special requirements? They might be having a particular guest who's a handicapped person, or a person who cannot move much but who still want to attend the function. So based on that particular requirement, you need to arrange for that facility for a particular customer. In some functions, they would be needing a dance floor for them to have a DJ music. So when they order that or when they request for that, we need to provide them with the sound, that is a DJ music sound, the speakers, the mics, and the stage for them to have the particular dance. Now, there may be some special requirements where it would be a complete sit-down buffet and followed by the wedding ceremonies to be followed. So based on all these instructions that are being given by the customer at the time of booking, where they take the booking orders for the customer, so these instructions have to be followed very minutely so that there is no kind of miscommunication or any kind of bridges when it comes to difficulty of the customer serving the food or the having his food and having a good time. Now, what are the different types of setups in a buffet? The different types of setup in a buffet are U shape, W shape, T shape, L shape, E shape. These are some of the setups for the boardroom functions that we will be looking at, which is called as a formal buffet setup. So like I said earlier, we will be seeing something called as beverages at a later point of time, and we will also be seeing tobacco. So what is tobacco? Tobacco is nothing but a leaf taken from a plant that grows up to 4 to 5 feet height. Now that particular plant has a different color of flower, a purplish white, which has the flavor and the particular kind of ingredients. So tobacco is basically taken from the leaf of that one plant, that is, and then it is dried, and there is a different process that goes through to make a proper tobacco. Now tobacco using, there is a different different stages where they use different kind of tobaccos, as you're all aware of the different types of tobaccos that are available. So we will be looking at cigars. And what is cigar? Cigar is nothing but tobacco leaf stuffed with tobacco leaf and rolled, and the cigar is smoked. So who is the leading producer of cigars? Which country provides the most cigars and the best cigars? So the ones that provide most cigars is Cuba. Cuba is the land of cigars and they are the land of tobacco. Cuba also has a specialty of having the world's best rum come from that particular country. So I'll come to that later once we finish this tobacco part of it. So tobacco, as I said, cigars. What is a cigar? Cigar is nothing but tobacco leaves rolled tightly into a bundle and formed like a cigarette. There are three parts of a cigar. The first is called the head, the body, and the tail. So when your customer asks, I want a cigar, you first present the menu to the customer, allow him to see what cigar he wants. As I said, Cuba is one of the best cigars in the world and they are the leading producers of cigar. So once the customer has made up his mind as to what cigar he wants, take that cigar, present it to the customer. While presenting it, you need to use an underliner and the cigar lighter and the cigar cutter. So once the customer decides, you give him the cigar. To serve the cigar, you present it to the customer, then unwrap the cigar, the first part of it. You have to unwrap the top layer of the cigar leaf, which will be generally a mild kind of paper that will be used on top. Remove that, cut the head of the cigar depending on the customer. If the customer says, leave it, I will do it, then just give it to the customer, you can come away. Make sure that there is an ashtray for the customer on the table and a glass of water, just in case the customer needs something to drink. So generally, tobacco or cigar, they have it with some kind of a drink. Mostly it will be brandy with cigar, or hot coffee or black coffee with cigar. Depending on what the customer requires, we need to serve the customer. So Cuba is famous for two things, as I said. One is for rum and one is for cigars. So just to keep you again updated, you could go ahead and look at the website also for the information on Google. So what is the procedure to make a cigar? The procedure to make a cigar is, first you need to collect the leaves, dry it in sun. Now, cigar plant has a very particular way of growing. It grows to 3 to 4 feet, maximum 5 feet tall, and it has to have the correct temperature, which is 45 degrees centigrade. If it goes above that, the plant will die. Below that, the outcome would be no wine. So the correct temperature, moderate climate is the one that we will be looking at for the cigar to be grown. First, you collect the dry leaves from the plant, dry it out, then it undergoes a curing process to make sure that the leaves are clear and there is no particular kind of harmful chemicals. Then it goes into bundling, where you bundle all the leaves that are crushed. Again, it's bundled together in the cigar and it's rolled and the processes come out. Next, you have the labeling for that particular cigar. Now, in recent times, various countries have started, growing cigars, the plants, and getting different flavors. So you have other countries like England, you have US, you have India also producing some cigars. So these would be the particular kind of cigars that we'll be looking at. Like I said earlier, we'll be doing beverages also. So in beverages, as I said earlier, we have two types, alcoholic and non-alcoholic. So as I mentioned earlier, alcoholic is whiskey, brandy, rum, gin, vodka, tequila and beer. And not forgetting the cocktails. So non-alcoholic, again it's two types, one is hot, one is cold. And the hot we have the regular tea, coffee, and we also have the particular kind of health drinks that are being served for the customer. So if you look at beverages, it's a big chain that goes through every part of need of the customer. So beverages also plays an important part for the customer and for the hotel industry. So what we'll be looking at is, today we'll also be looking at another aspect for alcoholic beverages, which is whiskey, brandy, rum, gin, vodka, tequila, beer and wine. Under wine there are two types. One is red wine, white wine and rose wine, which is based on color, and the other one is champagne, based on the amount of carbon dioxide that is used in the process of champagne or sparkling wine. So how do we look at wines? Wines is categorized based on its color and the taste. So the color meaning red wine, white wine, rose wine. So white wine, there are two types. One is normal white wine and the other one is sparkling white wine. Sparkling white wine is where the carbon dioxide is added into it. Sparkling white wine is generally, champagne is generally called as sparkling white wine, but champagne is specifically produced from the region of France and the district of Champagne. So all champagnes can be called as sparkling wines, but all sparkling wines cannot be called as champagnes, because that is a brand registered by the Registration Department of France. Okay. So if you're looking at whiskey, what is whiskey? Whiskey is made from malt and has a process of distillation. First they will collect the malt, collect it and make the molasses. From that it is next further filtered and then it is processed to whiskey with the different flavors. Now what is the flavor? You have a single malt, double malt whiskey, which again is the processing done for the process of whiskey. And also for whiskey you have a different flavors called as smoked whiskey, which they use the wood to the flavor of the wood goes into the whiskey when it is being distilled and processed. So that will be the whiskey process for the different flavors. Next we have the beer process. Beer again is malt, nothing but malt, which is being further the juice is filtered and then you get the particular malt for the beer and carbon dioxide is added into that. Now there are different types of beer. One is a stout beer and draught beer. Stout beer is a bitter herbs that are used in it. So beer, you have a herb that is being added into it to get the particular flavor. The beer gets the flavor from the particular herb that is added into the beer while the time of processing. So, like I said, tobacco itself is the plant which is growing, and just to give you a brief idea for different types of cigars, different countries that are producing, it's Jamaica, Cuba, Singapore, Philippines, and also US. So the rest we will see in the next class. Thank you and have a great day.